Welcome back to Grimverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight, we step into Victorian England, a place polished with etiquette, soaked in perfume, and secretly humming with cocaine. A world where respectability was everything, and yet entire households were unknowingly wired on a drug no one thought to fear. Picture the era of corsets, tea rooms, lace gloves, and moral perfection. Now imagine all of it trembling slightly, because half the women in the room had cocaine in their tea, their lozenges, their tonics, even their toothpaste. The empire that worshipped modesty was running on stimulants they believed were harmless. Doctors encouraged it. Mothers shared it. And the women themselves, they felt energized, elevated, sometimes unusually animated. No one questioned the twitching hands, the sudden rush of laughter, the manic bursts of housekeeping at 2 a.m. After all, it was Victorian England. Everything looked proper, even when it wasn't. You step through a narrow London street, your boots clicking against wet stone. A thin fog curls around your coat as you pass gas lamps trembling in the evening wind. Behind a lace-draped window, you hear hurried footsteps and a breathless giggle that feels just a little too sharp. Take a slow breath. Let the day fall away from you. And before we step deeper into this strange chapter of history, gently tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, so you never miss another forgotten story drifting in the dark. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan settle into your chest like a second heartbeat. Slow your thoughts, just enough for the past to find you. Let the quiet hold you still. It's the late 1800s, and while the empire imagines itself perfectly civilized, a silent epidemic is pulsing beneath the silk and etiquette. Tonight you'll see how a harmless household remedy turned Victorian women into restless, trembling, wide-eyed maniacs, without anyone realizing what was happening. You wake up inside a Victorian morning, the kind that smells faintly of coal dust and rose soap. The air sits still, the curtains breathe a little, and somewhere downstairs, a chemist in a starched apron polishes a bottle he probably shouldn't be proud of. The neighbor's horse sneezed on your crinoline, and your husband spent the afternoon coughing theatrically by the window, hoping you'd ask about his nerves. So when the chemist offered a new temperance tonic, a chilled Coca-Cola, you took it. You needed this. He swore it was non-alcoholic, soothing, invigorating, and endorsed by the Pope, Thomas Edison, and an aunt who hasn't slept since April. The first sip is lovely. The second hits harder. By the third, your skeleton is vibrating. Your jaw grinds like a coffee mill. You're suddenly passionate about the Crimean War and brass doorknobs, and you feel compelled to alphabetize the carpet. You've never felt more alive or more suspicious of wallpaper. You stare at the chemist. What's in this? He smiles. Coca leaves and cola nut. Coca, as in cocaine? Very trace amounts, he assures you. Just enough to clear the sinuses, energize the organs, awaken the spiritual body, and make you forget your own name at dinner. You're already 3 sips past the recommended dose and 2 minutes from founding a new religion. Coca-Cola was created by Dr. John Pemberton, a wounded Confederate soldier with a morphine habit who tried to cure addiction by inventing a cocaine-based fizzy drink. His earlier French wine Coca mimicked the popular Vin Mariani, red wine mixed with coca leaves, beloved by Jules Verne and Pope Leo XIII, who kept a hip flask for emergencies, meaning boredom or Tuesday. When Atlanta banned alcohol in 1886, Pemberton removed the wine, added syrup and bubbles, and kept the cocaine. It was like taking gunpowder out of a cannon and replacing it with fireworks. Still a bang, just fizzier. Marketed as a brain tonic, it promised to cure fatigue, headaches, shyness, and possibly ghosts. People drank it and immediately felt ready to repaint roofs or confront Cousin Bernard. Thomas Edison drank it. Corset wearers drank it and regretted their lack of lung room. Each serving delivered a small but meaningful dose of cocaine. Cocaine was removed publicly in 1903, fully phased out by 1929, though Coca-Cola still uses decocainized coca leaves processed in a DEA-approved New Jersey facility, which somehow makes perfect sense. But none of that matters now. You're 3 glasses deep, conducting an imaginary orchestra and drafting blueprints for a steam-powered sewing machine that critiques poetry. You've cured your own sciatica by running in circles and yelling, "I'm invincible," at the gaslights. Just as you're settling down, the chemist returns with something new. A bottle of wine with a golden label and the Pope's blessing. What could possibly go wrong with wine and cocaine? It's just wine, you tell yourself, as he pours a Victorian-sized glass the size of a cereal bowl. It's Vin Mariani, endorsed by the Pope, the President of France, and at least one magician. The first sip is smooth. By the second, you forget you ever had problems. By the third, you're reciting Shakespeare backward, reorganizing shelves by emotional relevance, and challenging the vicar to push-ups. You announce you feel wonderful. The chemist nods. Yes, that's the cocaine. Vin Mariani was the Victorian Red Bull, if Red Bull came with a rosary. Invented by Angelo Mariani, it mixed Bordeaux with Peruvian coca leaves, extracting about 21 milligrams of cocaine per glass. Recommended dose: 3 glasses a day. Modern doctors would simply say no. It was wildly popular. Jules Verne, Edison, Queen Victoria's medical staff, even US presidents drank it. Ads promised cheer, vigor, and spiritual uplift, with side effects like fluency in Latin, delusions of grandeur, and the belief your liver had become a superior organ. It was marketed to women, children, and anyone suffering from exhaustion of the moral faculties, Victorian for being tired of everyone's nonsense. Back in the chemist shop, you're pouring your second glass as the candlelight shimmers, or the walls applaud. Your hat feels inspiring. You hum hymns to a spider and sketch a hot air balloon shaped like Queen Victoria. The chemist taps the counter. He has something new. More wine? Better. Tablets used by Arctic explorers. You take the whole bottle. You're not going on an expedition. You're just going to the market. You need a cucumber, some shoe polish, and possibly revenge. But the chemist, your trusted, eternally twitchy chemist, insists you'll need something special for the journey. Try these, he says, placing a glass bottle on the counter. Inside, chalky white pills stamped with a lightning bolt and the label "Forced March." For endurance, he whispers. Very popular with the Arctic types. You do not question this. You take one tablet, nothing. You take another. Suddenly, you are no longer a tired Victorian with cabbage breath. You are velocity itself, a creature of snow, triumph, and unreasonable confidence. You've never climbed anything, yet you now believe you could scale a cathedral and baptize the weather on the way down. You sprint out of the shop without paying. 10 minutes later, you've reached the market, reorganized the produce section by continent, and attempted to recruit strangers for your South Pole expedition. You do not need cucumbers anymore. You need crampons and glory. In truth, you weren't the only wool-trousered maniac. Cocaine tablets, often sold as forced march pills, were genuinely used by Victorian explorers like Shackleton, Scott, and Dr. Cook. Because nothing says responsible planning like crossing Antarctica with narcotics and blind optimism. They were marketed as stimulants of heroic vigor, perfect for long marches, great fatigue, and exposure to wind. Recommended for soldiers, cyclists, and exceptionally determined lunatics. The logic was simple. If your options were walking 40 miles through a blizzard or dying in a frozen tent beside a man named Nigel, cocaine started to sound reasonable. Sold at chemists, included in military kits, praised in expedition memoirs, they promised warmth, clarity, and forward motion. Poetic words for tablets that were essentially pressed cocaine and wishful thinking. Forced March even boasted. No crash, no fatigue, no hunger. A blatant lie written during an enthusiastic heart palpitation. Some explorers swore these pills saved their lives. Others vanished, later found shirtless in the snow, grinning and halfway through inventing the metric system. Victorian newspapers didn't report complaints, mainly because anyone taking them had enough energy to build a snow fort before the ink dried. Back in the market, you've climbed a tower of turnips and declared yourself the governor of produce. You're sweating. Your cucumber's quest is forgotten. You've drawn a flag out of celery and a meat receipt. And just as you prepare to march home victorious, you remember, oh right, you forgot to brush your teeth. Thankfully, the chemist mentioned something earlier. Something about coca leaves, morning rituals, and tongue fur. You pop one last tablet. You have hygiene to attend to. You vaguely recall shouting, south, pole, or bust, at the vicar's cat. You sit up. Your pulse is playing a drum solo, and your mouth tastes like you've been licking a coal bin. Your tongue is dry, furry, and possibly forming political opinions. This will not do. You need something cleansing, something herbal, something Victorian, and vaguely French. Luckily, the chemist left you a tiny vial labeled Morning Reviver for furred tongue, flatulence, and indecision. Perfect. You pour it on your toothbrush, scrub your teeth, gums, and possibly your soul. The effect is instant. You can taste color. Your tongue feels reborn as a slightly irritated lizard. Let's talk about the cocaine-powered Victorian morning routine, because yes, it existed. In the 1870s, 1890s, physicians like the occasionally unhinged Dr. Paolo Mantegazza promoted coca as the cure for everything. Furred tongue, bad dreams, flatulence, sour temperament, and the emotional strain of annoying people. Victorians rinsed their mouths with coca infusions, thrilled that their toothpaste made them want to reorganize the wallpaper. Medical journals praised cocaine's awakening effect on the mucous membranes. Dentists offered cocaine pastes, powders, even chewing gum, promising freshness and cheerful nerve stimulation. An 1889 AD bragged, cocaine mouthwash restores vigor, clears the tongue, encourages sociability. In reality, it turned your tongue into euphoric rubber and made you strangely passionate about cutlery. Housewives used it to start the day. Gentlemen used it before meetings. Teenagers probably used it before questioning the butler about the nature of bread. And naturally, Victorians took it further. If cocaine helped the tongue, why not the eyelids? Why not the lashes? Back in the bathroom, you've polished your teeth, calmed the towel rack, and negotiated with your reflection. Your tongue is marble sleek, but something's off. Your eyelashes. Too humble, too librarian, unworthy of your cocaine-kissed magnificence. You snap your fingers, a needle, more cocaine. Time to upgrade your face. Moments later, your eyelids are numb, your hands steady, thanks cocaine, and you're gripping a needle threaded with human hair, possibly yours. Then you blink once and get to work. It sounds insane, because it is. But in the 1890s, sewing lashes directly into numbed eyelids was fashionable. Victorian beauty culture was unhinged. Arsenic wafers for skin, lead for complexion, and now home surgery while mildly hallucinating. The method: numb the eyelid with cocaine tincture, thread long hairs or horsehair through the lid, sit still while your eyeball begs for mercy. Salons offered this service proudly. Advertisements promised flirtatious eyes and ravishing allure. They forgot to mention the bleeding, scarring, and the chance of looking like you fought a raccoon. But you finish. Your lashes are present. One leans east, the other salutes the queen. You grab your parasol and dab a tan, little red tin labeled sniff tonic, for hay fever and moral weakness. One inhale and the world tilts. Your sinuses open like French windows. Your soul cartwheels back into your body with a new attitude. Victorians adored their cocaine cigarettes. Elegant, legal, and wildly unhinged. Pharmacists sold them under names like catarrh cleansing cigarettes and mentholated moral clarity sticks. They cured hay fever, migraines, shyness, and the horror of realizing your fiancé collects beetles. Ads boasted, cured my asthma, and reminded me why I married Reginald. Each cigarette delivered a refined hit of cocaine, sometimes with opium or menthol. There were no warnings, only drawings of women inhaling enlightenment. Back behind the hedge, you're euphoric and reorganizing cutlery by emotional tone. You stride back onto the lawn like you've won Best in Show. Lady Mudgeworth approaches. You're ready. You unleash a 7-minute monologue on the psychology of bone-handled spoons. People applaud. A man kneels. Then your chemist arrives with a small box. Inside, a polished syringe labeled for fatigue, melancholy, and light fencing. He raises an eyebrow. You nod. Oh, darling, we shall. You normally prefer pills and fizzing tonics, but today you're spiritually dead from a 5-hour talk with Cousin Edith about curtains. So when he offers a restorative injection, you simply roll up your sleeve. Inside the box, a Victorian syringe and a vial labeled liquid concentrated cocaine for revival, efficiency, and difficult conversations with furniture. He taps the needle. You ask if he's a doctor. He squints. I was mistaken for one at a train station once. He injects you. What follows is best described as an angelic lightning bolt. Your spine straightens. Your purpose puts on a top hat and reorganizes your existence. You are magnificent. You are vibrating. Cocaine injections were wildly popular in late Victorian medicine. Doctors injected people for fatigue, indigestion, anxiety, long train rides, anything. Chemists sold full injection kits, no prescription required. Women kept them beside eyebrow pencils and fainting salts. Just in case the urge to reorganize the pantry very suddenly arose. 1892 AD cheerfully advised, for the weary gentleman, the overtaxed mother, or the overcooked clerk, inject and carry on. Doctors recommended moderate use, meaning whenever you were tired, sad, bored, anxious, gassy, or slightly out of breath. Back in your parlor, you've just injected enough pharmaceutical optimism to rewire a telegraph line. You've rewritten your will in iambic pentameter and composed a love letter to Queen Victoria's ankles. You're unstoppable, radiant, possibly immortal, until you see your reflection. Your hair is flat, spiritually defeated. Powder is for amateurs. You need science. A cobalt bottle waits on the vanity. Dr. Harrow's capillary tonic for weak-willed follicles. With cocaine, you pour. It hits your scalp like a sermon shouted in a copper bell. Your follicles buzz like a disturbed beehive. Within 30 seconds, you're pacing, planning, and growing personality traits you didn't have 10 minutes ago. Victorian hair care was a storm of herbs, lies, and narcotics. Scalp tonics with cocaine, camphor, ammonia, and something called invigoration juice, promising a scalp alive, responsive, electrified. Did they grow hair? No. They grew confidence, and the belief you could win an argument with a chandelier. Now your curls are upright, slightly militarized. You fling open the window and declare, I am voluminous, and I will be respected. The neighbors clap. The chemist appears with a pink bottle, Madame Lavona's elixir for emotional delicacy, with cocaine and very good intentions. You try to be soft. You stomp instead. Your nerves are armed. So you sip roses dipped in danger. Within 90 seconds, you have opinions. You lecture the mantel clock and tell your bedroom it's not meeting your emotional needs. Victorian nerve tonics were pharmaceutical hand grenades disguised as compassion. Cocaine, alcohol, morphine, caffeine, and gold leaf, sold as cures for nerves, wandering wombs, and unapproved book clubs. Your heart is quoting Shakespeare. Your eyebrows are trying to unionize. You've named your elbows Gerald and Faith. You decide you need balance. A bath. Professor Wigham's Coca soap awaits. For skin that feels touched by angels and also mildly on fire. You lather. Your pores open. Your scalp applauds. And a Victorian angel floats by with a thumbs up. Cocaine soaps promised radiance, moral clarity, and the urge to repaint the ceiling in symbolic patterns. You rise from the bath vibrating an air dry through sheer force of will. On the washstand, Coca cosmetic cream for radiance, wrinkle repulsion, and unholy levels of confidence. You smear cold pink promise on your face. Your skin hums. Your jawline issues ultimatums. You now resemble a well-lit threat. Victorian face creams mixed cocaine, mercury, lead, and overconfidence, promising to calm the hysteria of an once insufficiently admired woman. Downstairs, your chemist offers a single chocolate truffle. It's medicated, of course. You bite in. Lavender, power, and felony. By bonbon number 3, you've rearranged furniture by aura and written a 5-act play about forks. Cocaine-laced chocolates were staples. 1 bonbon for cheer, 2 for vigor, 3 for productivity, 4 not recommended during legal proceedings. Then the cramp hits like betrayal. Your uterus throws furniture. You reach for Dr. Fogsworth's monthly lady elixir, cocaine, camphor, laudanum, and determination. Seconds later, you're painless, free of linear time, and ready to repaint the shed. Victorian lady tonics promise to tame monthly unrest and wandering ovaries, and mostly just launched women into orbit. In the nursery, a child screams with operatic rage. You finally reach for Mrs. Flindle's soothing syrup. Cocaine, morphine, alcohol, and quiet. 1 double spoonful, and he blinks like he's solved gravity, then falls asleep mid-blink. Victorian parenting relied on chemical diplomacy, soothing syrups that left babies either peacefully napping or staring into space like they'd seen Queen Victoria's ghost playing cards with a walrus. Later, your chemist delivers Mr. Crumb's medicinal cocoa, fortified with cocaine and the spirit of adventure. 1 sip and your blood holds a staff meeting. You are the cocoa. By 2:47 a.m., you've polished the silver, improved the alphabet, and ghostwritten your husband's memoirs. Medicinal cocoa was sold as the healthy alternative to tea, packed with cocaine, caffeine, and enough sugar to make your heart file for hazard pay. For hay fever, there's F. Grimble's invincible snuff. Breathe easy, think hard, cough in Latin. You pinch, snort, and suddenly the garden is a religious experience. You whisper, "I know," to a daffodil you don't understand. Cocaine nasal powders promised clear breathing, clear minds, and profound confidence about doilies. Public speaking, Lady Harmon's elocution enhancer. For stage fright and the unfortunate habit of listening when others speak. You drink, and now you're on a tea crate in the park, giving a TED talk to a duck. Victorian orators, preachers, actors, and debutantes all used cocaine courage drops to obliterate fear and accidentally annex Scotland in their speeches. Body image? Madame Rivington's appetite corrector. Cocaine-rich, unapologetically slim. You stop wanting bread and start organizing your teacups by temperature of intention. Cocaine diet tonics promised to elevate the will above cake, and they did, right into twitching, sleepless righteousness. Finally, you're exhausted. Enter Dr. Swan's bedtime elixir. Cocaine, laudanum, opium, chloral hydrate, and a prayer. You melt into the mattress in a sleep so deep time forgets you. Victorian sleep tonics weren't gentle. They bludgeoned the nervous system into silence, while newspapers politely called them curious cordials. And so ends our lace-trimmed descent into Victorian pharmaceuticals, an era where they snorted, smoked, brushed, soaked, injected, and fed cocaine to their children and called it wellness. If history teaches anything, it's that no one who drinks cocaine cocoa before bed should be left alone with a mirror or a printing press. But at least, eventually, they slept. Face down in a fainting chair, glowing with confidence, gently vibrating. The night softens. Your breath slows. The echo of that strange Victorian world drifts away like steam from a cooling teacup. Somewhere far behind us, Gas lamps still flicker in the fog. A lace curtain trembles. And the quiet rustle of a chemist's apron fades into the dark, leaving only the faint memory of trembling hands and glittering tonics. You feel the door of that era closing gently, as if time itself places a finger to its lips. You're here again, in your own room, in your own stillness. The past settles like dust on a closed book, waiting for another night, another wandering mind. If this journey kept you company, if it eased the weight of your day, feel free to tap like, share the story, or subscribe so more quiet midnights can find you. No pressure, just a soft invitation in the dark. Thank you for drifting through history with me tonight. Goodbye, and we will meet again.